Step by step, we're gonna do it. Step number one, you gotta shake your head. You gotta shake your head. You gotta leave your back way on your back and just shake your head. Sort of rock with the beat, you know. Shake your head. Lean way back and shake your head. Yeah. Y'all gonna learn how to do this.
Now, for those of you that might not be able to shake your head because of some physical ailment, rheumatism, arthritis, old age, whatever, you got a funky move I want you to do for me right now, y'all. It's a very funky move, and it goes something like this, y'all. You ready? Here we go.
You gotta peck your neck.
And be funky while you're pecking it. Do it just like this.
Peck your neck.
Look over at the person.
Greetings and welcome to True Life Experiences streaming live on Streets 989 Atlanta TV, the #1 show sharing the lives of extraordinary leaders and entertainers through true life experiences. I'm your host, the First Lady EmCee, Minister Jazzy. Tonight we have the honor and the pleasure to honor an Atlanta's legendary photographer, musician, author, and historian, Horace Henry. He's stopping by to share with us a little bit about his powerful band that he was a part of during the 70s, the Chapparrals. So it's going to be an extensive show tonight, but hold on, we're going to bring Horace on and we're going to have a great time sharing his life and career with the audience tonight. Hi, Horace.
Hello, Chazzy. How are you?
I am so honored. Oh my goodness. I couldn't even figure out what to say to introduce you to our audience. I am such a fan of yours. I have been for a very, very long time before I even became a friend of yours on social media. Social media really has connected us with some of the pioneers of the days when we were younger kids and coming up and had an opportunity to hang out with some of the funk bands and some of the things that were going on at Clark Atlanta University. Oh
All
my
right.
God, you have so much to talk about. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Clark Atlanta? And
I can, I can, I can
I
do
know you're a country boy, but
that.
yeah, from Palmetto,
That's right.
Georgia, which
My
is
hometown.
around the corner from me. So I'm always in Palmetto. It's a nice country town, definitely. But you also were attended Fairburn High School,
I
right?
did. I did because we couldn't go to. We didn't have a high school in Palmetto.
Right. So, you are definitely a Atlanta Metro legend. So let's dive into this. All right. So let's start with your brother sending you a camera while he was serving in the military. I think was it Vietnam?
He was in Vietnam. He was between Guam and Vietnam because he was
Uh-huh.
serving in the Air Force.
Uh-huh. And
Uh,
so now he
what
sent you this
happened?
camera and it
Yeah,
just changed your whole life, right?
it did. Now I had a little snap shooter before, but when
Uh-huh.
Dill sent me, my brother's name is Dylan. When he sent me that camera from overseas, he was not interested in the camera. I was at Clark College at that point, and I was always carrying a camera for some reason. Jazzy, I always had a camera with me, I mean, I was a music major. I was taking classes at a liberal arts college, taking history, taking music appreciation, taking English, taking this and that. Uh, but I always had that camera with me. I don't know why, and I don't know how I could afford it. But when he sent me the camera, Dr. King had just been assassinated in
Yes.
April.
And
In April,
you coined a legendary shot.
right? He had just been assassinated, and Mrs. Coretta King was making sure that the world would never forget Dr. King and his work by trying to introduce a Martin Luther King birthday, memorial birthday. And that happened on his birthday, January 15th, 1969. I was at Clark, had just pledged Alpha, and Dr. King was an Alpha. And
Right.
so we all decided to go down to Ebenezer Baptist Church, knowing that we were not going to get into the church, but just being, with the crowd and everybody floating around, just a part of the ambiance of what was going on. And as an afterthought, from the dormitory room, I just reached over there and grabbed this camera that my brother had sent me, along with 2 rolls of black and white film, just as an afterthought. I mean, just took it with me. And when I got down, I started to take photographs on the outside. Keep in mind now, I didn't know how to work the camera. I just got
Mhm.
the camera. So I started taking photographs around the church on the outside, knowing that I was not going to get in. But in that Horace Henry vein of life, I finagled my way to the lower lobby of Ebenezer, and then
Mhm.
up the steps to the back of the main auditorium for the church, and was standing there in the back of the church. True story. Now this is divine intervention. Standing in the very back of the church, no credentials, didn't look official. I was not official, and in a crowd of people, out
You
of
were
nowhere,
official.
and
You just didn't know it.
out of an out of nowhere, an elderly lady, probably an usher or something like that
Mhm.
from the church, came to me, grabbed me by my elbow, and took me down to the front of the church. And
Ain't
then I
God
raised.
good?
That was divine intervention. Why was she? I don't know who she was, and she couldn't have known me. But I raised my camera. I found myself surrounded by a pool of journalism people,
Photographers. Mhm.
photographers, media folk from papers, magazines, everywhere. So
Mhm.
I raised my camera after I wiped myself off, because I hadn't been in that situation before, so I was excited. So I raised my camera and started to shoot pictures, and that's the way it happened. I saw Dr. King's wife, his family, his mother and father. Rosa Parks was there. Dr. Joseph Lowry, Abernathy, everybody was there. Bishop Cornelius Henderson, a young pastor at that point, and all these people. And so Harry Belafonte was there on the front row. And I'm
Wow.
just as close as I am from you to me right now, from these folks. And it was just something. It was a miracle.
That's amazing. That's like something that has to be cemented in history because that photograph has just is everywhere.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about your photographs because your photographs are in some of the most prominent places in America. Share with us a little bit briefly about some of those photos and the locations.
Right. Well, locally, if anyone visits the new Pascals on Northside Drive here in Atlanta,
Yes.
you will see a group of a collection of black and white photographs around the wall at Pascals. Mr. and Mrs. Russell and I curated everything that you see in the restaurant, from the Russell and Pascal room downstairs to the main bite of the restaurant to upstairs to the Maynard Jackson room. Everything, we went through thousands of photographs to put that together. Before those photographs went up, Pascal's had a lot of modern art all the way around. Pastels, beautiful, bright, very beautiful artwork, but it didn't reflect the community that Pascal's was in. And Mr. Russell
And
told,
serving.
absolutely. And so Mr. Russell says, Horace, I want something that will reflect where we are. And we were right there in the Atlanta University Center, in west side of Atlanta, southwest Atlanta. And so the three of us, Mrs. Russell, Sylvia Russell, Mr. Herman Russell, and myself, looked through all of these things. And as a result of what we chose, that's what you see when you go to Pascal's now. And people come from all over the world and look at that photograph, those photographs.
Right.
It's
That
called they are called the portraits at
collection.
Pascal's.
Okay. And so you also have a collection of a book that you published in 2010, one day in January.
Right.
Share with us a little bit about that collection.
And the way that came about was those, remember we talked about me taking photographs at Dr. King's ecumenical service?
Yes.
Took the photographs, I shot 48 shots that day on 2 rolls of black and white film. Out of 48 exposures, 43 came out. And that was amazing. That was divine
And you've
intervention.
been able to use every one of them.
Every one of them sat in the shoebox at my house with the negatives for over 40 years. And a couple of friends of
Awesome.
mine, said, Horace, you need to do something with these photographs. And so I developed this book right there called One Day in January.
Mm-hmm.
That's the book right there. You can see it online. And so the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. heard about these photographs down here in Atlanta,
Right.
collection of photographs. Nobody else in the world had these because all of the photographers that were there had to get their shots and go out, get their
Right.
shots and go
That's
out.
normally what journalists does. We don't
Right.
stay on location.
Right. You have to move because she had to go to
Yeah.
publication. Guess
Right.
what? This little country boy didn't have to go to publication. So I just shot the whole thing. And so when the Smithsonian heard about this, I introduced myself to them by way of this book. And
Mm-hmm.
they rejected me in a beautiful way. They said, Mr. Henry, we love the photographs, but we don't purchase books. And so I contacted Smithsonian again and says, I'm not trying to sell you a book. What I have are photographs of that are one of a kind. This
Historical
collection
moment.
is not another collection in the world like this. And so
Right.
Jacqueline Serwer, the key curator for Smithsonian, flew down to Atlanta, came to my home here in Atlanta, looked at all of the prints, and said, Mr. Henry, the Smithsonian would love to have these images in Washington, D.C. And that's
And
how they ended up.
these are the images.
Right. Those that you're looking at, that's from the second copies of the main original collection that's in Washington, D.C. Every
Uh-huh.
January, February, generally this exhibit goes around. It's been to locally in Atlanta, a lot of libraries in Atlanta. It's been at other places. I've taken trips out of town to talk about the book to up to Fredericksburg, Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee, guest speaker for Black History Month. So, but the book is doing very well. It's a history book. So since it's a
Right.
history book, Jazzy, history books don't get old; they just get better.
No, because it's his history.
Right.
It is history.
That's
And
right.
you are a historian, but we're going to get to that at the end because that's going to recap everything. But
Mm.
let's move on to the legendary, the one and only, the Chapparrals.
All right, that was my man. Let me tell you the story about the Chapparrals. The band was formed by two or three brothers from Douglasville, Georgia, Winston, Georgia. Homer,
Hmm.
Danley, Stacy, and Leonard, and I think maybe another brother, Charles. So they formed these. They got these little young guys together out there in Winston, in Georgia, Douglasville, Georgia, and Carrollton, and Villarica, and formed the band. And back in
Hmm.
the day, all of the bands would go to Atlanta. Atlanta was a thriving entertainment center in the 70s
Right.
and 80s. And had it not been for live entertainments and bands, Atlanta might not have made it. But we kept Atlanta afloat in the entertainment
Hmm.
business. So anyway, I was playing with a band called Wallace Jones and the Rockers, and some friends of mine wanted me to audition for a band called the Chapparrals. They were playing at a little club on Simpson Road called the El Shangri-La. And so it's about as big as my den right here. So I went over, and Wallace Jones and the Rockers were allowed to sit in with the Chapparrals. We played Shaft. That was their first time seeing me. And then the band kind of liked me, and I was listening to them. I kind of liked them. And so I joined the Chapparrals, and we left
Mhm.
El Shangri-La to our next big venue in Atlanta, the Pendulum
Mm.
Club. The Pendulum Club um, on Martin Luther King Drive in Peyton Road.
Uh-huh.
And so we were the house band at Pendulum Club for a while, and grew and honed our skills. And we ended up going to a place called the Golden Horn. Now,
Uh-oh.
a lot of people don't know about the Golden Horn. They know about Mr. B's Figure Eight, which took the place of the Golden Horn after we left. And after the Golden Horn closed down, then
Mhm.
Mr. B's became Mr. B's Figure Eight in that same building. So
Yeah, I vaguely remember some of that.
okay,
But I was definitely, we were definitely going to ask you about your write up that you did about Mr. V. Man, we used to have some good times.
yeah, I
That's when Atlanta was really, yeah.
wherever you went in Atlanta, from one end of the city to the other, to Buckhead, to Bankhead, to Camilton Road, one end to the other, there was live entertainment.
Yes,
And
it
San
was.
Susie downtown, you remember
And
San Susie?
but it was a better, everything was, it was booming. Um, yeah, even over there where Mr. V's ended up, because Mr. V's was at two locations I remember
Okay.
vaguely, at
V's
least
on P Street.
two,
I know he was at
right?
V's on P Street, and then when he took over the Golden Horn,
Uh-huh.
you could
And
go.
then
You
he
could go.
came back to that it's like the Metroplex type, that big, what is it? It's not it's not called Metroplex, but you know what I'm
Where the
talking. It's
crew
right
is
before you
sitting.
get on 285.
I think I know what you're talking about, but we were so busy going and doing our thing. I didn't.
Yeah,
When we left the
yeah.
Golden Horn, we started to get on the concert circuit.
Right. So you've done some things with Shaka and Funkadelics and Temptations and whew.
Our first gig was in Macon, Georgia, and I've kept jazz. I have
Oh,
calendar.
I know you have a catalog because it,
The first gig was at Macon, Georgia, at the Macon Coliseum. After we left the Golden Horn and the Pendulum Club, we
uh-huh.
got on the concert circuit. And so on that concert was a group called the Hughes Corporation. They had a song I
Hmm.
called Rock the Boat, the Rock the Boat Baby. Another band was on that concert called the Ohio Players. And we opened for these folks now from the Pendulum Club to the Macon, Georgia Coliseum
Hmm.
before thousands of people. Guess who headlined the show?
The Chapparrals.
Sly and the Family Stone.
Sly. Oh Lord, you guys was hanging out with Sly.
Sly was the headline
What
of that
now? What
show.
year was that? 70 what?
It was the mid
70.
70s, maybe 75, 76, somewhere in there.
Uh-huh.
70,
Uh-huh.
75, 76, looking at
Uh-huh.
77.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and
It was,
so
yeah, cause yeah,
and we
it was.
blew we blew Macon, Georgia up. I mean, we turned it out.
I think you guys, and one thing that I really want to mention is that you guys, the Chaparrals, you guys did a lot of free concerts as well.
We
You
did.
guys, you guys sold out at free I mean, it was like crazy.
You have to do that in order to go to the next level. And so
Right.
you have to give in order to receive. And so we
Yeah.
didn't mind. All we were young musicians. All we wanted to do was just play the music. And we rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. And when we got
Yeah.
to, I want to tell you this one quick story about that casket. When we went to the
Okay.
Golden Horn, there were New Ghetto Express band out of Birmingham, Alabama, Golden Third World band out of Atlanta,
Uh-huh.
Maggot Brain out of Atlanta. All these bands, hot bands, were playing the Golden Horn. So I said, "Look, guys, we have to come up with something that's going to be different. We can
Mm-hmm.
play the music, they can play the music. We can put on a good show, they can put on a good show." We went around to Thornton Funeral Home, Alfonso Dawson Funeral Home, Sellers Brothers, uh, guy named Andrew Stevens, and myself trying to find a casket. And when we got to the Thornton's funeral home, Mr. Thornton listened to our story and heard us and says, "Well, I got one back in the back y'all can have." And so we got that casket and put that in our show. And the Golden Horn was never the same after the Chapparrals brought the
But
casket.
you guys, what you was so funky. You was like breaking barriers, and setting trends back then.
Yeah, we opened it up, and it was not just a band or a group of musicians up there playing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we were entertaining the people. We would
Yes.
go out into the audience and give ourselves to the audience. We might pass little sexy notes to the ladies while their boyfriend is sitting there at their table with them. We pay, and he's already angry because she's looking at the chaparrals, and so he doesn't know what's on the note. And so it's something like, "You're looking good. See me after the show." And then what can she say? Nothing. But we just did a little thing. But the chaparrals was a drug free, alcohol free, and cigarette free band. And we
Yeah, and you
advertised it.
promoted that as
Yeah,
well, you know. Yeah. And that's the best thing about it because unfortunately, they figure if you're into the entertainment world, you unfortunately have to be doing some type of substance
yeah, yeah.
in order to make it through the day. But as we can see, that is not true.
It's not
But
true.
Horace, you are also a 50-year alumni scholar of Clark Atlanta. There are so many people that never reached that milestone. Congratulations.
Thank
Share
you.
with us a little bit about your love and your fund for your alma mater.
I mean, it's nothing like when I made the decision to come to Clark. I told you I wanted to major in music, so I was looking at FAMU. That was Doctor. Forgotten his name. He's Dr. Foster at FAMU. So I wanted to go to Florida A&M because of their band. But here in Atlanta, locally, I didn't look at Clark. Morris Brown had the best band around here. And
Yeah.
so every time I turned around, I would see Morris Brown at Macy's or at the Rose Bowl, or, you know, different parades around America. My elementary school principal said, Clint, why don't you think about just visiting Clark and just see how you like it? And so I came to Clark. A young lady took me under her wings. We looked at some classrooms. She introduced me to some fellow students. We went around the campus. I peeked into the dining hall, and I just felt good. And so, because of my elementary school principal's suggestion, I ended up at Clark, one of the best HBCU experiences I've had in my life. And when I
And
graduated from Clark, I was
not only that, being at Clark allow you to continue to reach beyond boundaries as it relates to your photography, as it relates to becoming a historian. It all ties into your being becoming an author and your love for fine automobiles. It's a complete just your life it has just been so filled with so much history just by you saying making that move to attend Clark Atlanta University. And that brought you full circle. You didn't have to go anywhere else.
That's right.
And you go back every year.
I'm always on the campus.
Yes, and I mean, I'm saying for you make sure you take the homecoming
Yeah.
festivities, and
Mhm.
you're out there, and you're networking, and you're meeting new students, and speaking of how you work with the students at Clark, share with us a little bit about that.
Well, when I graduated in '71, I was a hippie with hair all down my shoulders and stuff, and I didn't really want to work for anybody, Jazzy.
Uh-huh.
All I wanted to do was play my music. But my roommate, one of my fraternity brothers, was going to get drafted, and this is Horace. You need to go and talk with the people. He was working at Clark. He had gotten a
Uh-huh.
job at Clark. He says, you need to go and talk with the people in admissions because I'm going to volunteer for the Air Force. I'm not going to the Army because I don't want to go to Vietnam. And so I had my headband on, went over to the admissions office and talked with Mr. Burris and Mr. Rawls, and they had the gall to hire me. And when they hired me, I was at Clark and had a beautiful career at Clark for 15 years. And while I was
Mm,
there, we initiated the Virgin Islands recruitment program. We recruited hundreds of students from the Virgin Islands, and we would go to all over these college fairs, but it was a beautiful, wonderful experience. I will never
awesome.
forget it.
Awesome. Now you're also a renowned realtor.
Well, when I was at Clark, after I left Clark, um, I was there for 15 years. Like I said, I just wanted to do something different. And so my Chapparrals had done a Christmas party for a company called Gulf States Mortgage.
Hmm.
When our booking agent out of Charlotte, North Carolina, booked us with Gulf States Mortgage, he sent them a photograph. They sent him a rejection letter, said we don't want that band because they had seen our photographs.
Oh,
Well,
and the hippie look.
so it was placed upon me to go to Gulf States and negotiate and tell them why. In fact, the Chapparrals would be the ideal band for their Christmas party. And so when I left Clark, Gulf States was looking for a minority person in the area of the loan in the mortgage business.
Hmm.
They remembered me negotiating with them. And so Kathy Mackey, who was the PR HR person at Gulf States, called me, and I didn't even take an interview. I went up there, they showed me around. The next day, I had the job, and I was the number one out of the first 8 months of my employment at Gulf States Mortgage, and I got trophies here on the wall that prove it now. I was the number one producer, number one loan officer of Gulf States Mortgage. Period.
Awesome. You went in there and took over.
I was in charge of the down payment assistance program, and
Okay.
we helped quite a few people get, obtain
Get
mortgage.
loans and stuff. Well, that's awesome. Well, when you think about everything that you've done, what is one thing that you would like to share with the audience that really um, just captivates you and makes you who you are today?
Probably the love of my oldest brother, Alvin Henry, who was he's passed away now, but he was my hero.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when he joined the Marines, he became a jump master. He was working in the paraloft. He would be the person that could pack your parachute if you're going to jump out of an airplane. He was the person that would inspect the parachute before you even got up in the air. And he was also, his name is Alvin Hank Henry. He was
Mm-hmm.
also the only African American wing walker in the United States of America. I don't think there are any more now. And what a
Awesome.
wing walker does is when they would fly these little stunt airplanes, he
Mm-hmm.
would go outside of the plane and get on the wing. And as the airplane did loop the loops, he would be standing outside of the airplane entertaining people. That's my hero. That's why it's hard
That
to
is
impress me.
awesome. That is almost like what my uncle did when he was an air aviation as well in the army. So he did
Mhm.
parachutes and stuff and
Ah,
inspecting. and kind of like flight chief type stuff.
Hmm. But
Mm.
he, and that's another thing that my brother did. Is I was in Washington D.C. recruiting for Clark, and on my off day, I went to visit he and his wife, my sister-in-law. He let me jump from 3,000 feet.
How was that?
It was exhilarating. I never felt anything like that in my
When
life.
I was in the service, I had an opportunity to ride with the helicopter doors straight wide open.
Yeah.
And it was I didn't we wasn't doing any jumping or anything, but it was just I will never ever forget that ride from Louisiana to Pensacola when we
Oh,
were
that was a
in.
long helicopter ride.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
We had an awesome time. So when we started the show, we played this track, "Shake Your Head."
Yeah.
Share with us a little bit about that track. And
The
I
way
mean,
that,
that was one of you guys, one of the hottest ones that you had. I remember that particular track.
and we named the album "Shake Your Head" after that.
Right.
The
And
way,
didn't you have a dance almost like
yeah,
sort of
we taught people all over America how to shake their head, and I saw you doing a little bit on you when you was
yeah,
bringing
I
this.
was. Because
Um,
when I heard the song, I was like, oh, I remember this. I remember this track.
well,
Because
the way
back
that,
in the day, we didn't have a whole lot of music to listen to.
yeah,
And that's what people don't realize. And that's why I think, worship their groups like the Chapparrals. And, you guys just had a reunion. Share with us a little bit about how that reunion went.
it was wonderful. We try to get together. See, the thing about the Chapparrals is it's a band that, although we're no longer together, we try to get together every 3 or 4 years just to hug each other, look at old photographs, look at posters, talk
That's
about life on the road. And so we started to do this amongst ourselves. But for the last 2 or 3 meetings, we've opened the Chapparrals reunion up to other bands, funk bands in Atlanta. So now we
mm.
call it the All Atlanta Funk Band Reunion. And
All that Atlanta Funk Band
yeah, and we
reunion.
open free food. Everybody, you don't have to, and everybody's on the same level. Jazzy, you got fans of these groups like SOS, Brick, Cameo, Chapparrals, uh, and the fans are rubbing shoulders right with the people that they only seen on stage. No big eyes, no little U's. It's
Mm,
wonderful.
that's
And,
amazing.
and Mr.
It,
B spoke. Mr. B spoke, at our last reunion,
hmm
and told the people about how he made his fortune in the nightclub business. It was wonderful.
Right. Yeah, you actually did an article on that on his life. When you think about Mr. V, what are some of the things that takes you back?
Well, one of his stories that he shared with me is that he did not know how to read and write. He didn't finish school or anything like that. Came from Mississippi, went to Chicago, Illinois, was in his backyard one day cooking some food, and one of the neighbors put a speaker out on this side of the yard, on the other side, and he noticed that people were starting to come to gravitate towards the food and the music,
And the music.
and that concept stuck to him. So on the way from Chicago to Florida with his wife, they stopped in Atlanta, and something was happening over here in Southwest Atlanta where a building was for sale. The Golden Horn was closed down. This spot where the Golden Horn was for sale. That's
Uh-huh.
how Mr. Beast
Mr.
great.
V's came about.
Yeah,
Everybody has such powerful stories, how their journey, becomes full circle. It really is. And that's why I like to share, life experiences because it's such an amazing journey
yeah,
that each and every one of us bring to the world. And someone needs to hear it. It needs to be told. It needs to be shared. So that's what we are about. Hers is, you just sold some cars. So share with us a little bit about what you're doing with these cars.
I will do that. But let me just say, I appreciate your spirit and how you are bringing people onto your show.
Thank
You
you.
know, and exposing them and letting other people know about what's out there, because we need more of what you are doing. And I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I've always been a car nut, Jazzy. My first car when I was at Clark was a '58 MGA.
Yeah, I
It cost me $450, and Dad had to co-sign for me to get the car. But from that first sports car, I've always had, something around the house out there in the driveway, the yard,
Mhm.
that was like sporty, like 7 Jaguar XKEs, uh, about 3 or 4 1950 Buicks, a whole slew of MGs, some TR6s. There's all kinds of sports cars, or different cars, and that's the way I enjoy myself.
I know, but now you're doing the like selling your cars online,
Yeah,
and that's something that a lot of people haven't had a lot of exposure to. So that's why I was asking you, because I just love when I saw you had the truck pick your car up, and
yeah,
'cause I want one of those cars where they just deliver the car to me. I want to do that too. I
yeah.
don't know when, but hopefully one day I will.
You would do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've always used some online auto sales. That car that you saw loading on the truck, that was my little Honda, and it went to California.
Right.
The owner just emailed me back last night. I posted on Facebook probably tomorrow,
Uh-huh.
thanking me and saying that the Honda is doing well.
And the Honda was what?
A
So it was
1991 Honda
antique, right?
is a classic, 1991,
Okay.
not antique. But my Buick, 1950 Buick, was a classic antique,
Uh-huh.
and that car ended up in. But I've shipped the Buick
Overseas,
to
right? That
Sweden.
one did that one end up overseas?
The one I went to Sweden.
Yes.
My
I
latest,
remember I said, I said, this man, right, he's got it going on. He's just, I
but
love it though, because that just gives other people motivation, to live a good
a
life.
lot of black
And
a lot of black brothers and sisters don't get into classic cars though.
right, right.
There's a market there that we just don't tap. I think we need to tap that more.
We do, we do,
Yeah.
we do. Well, Horace, it's been awesome speaking with you and sharing with you tonight. Any thing else that you would like to add to the show that we may not have tapped on? I tried to tap on everything. Oh, Casual Cal. You got to tell me a little bit about that relationship as well.
Well, he was at the Golden Horn when we were there, and I think,
Uh-huh.
but he stayed there when Mr. V's. Had it not been for Casual Cal's uh, advertisement on W,
Now, Casual Cal goes way
yeah,
back
he did that
with
commercial
the
on WW
entertainment.
too,
Yes, with the entertainment here in Atlanta.
and that went,
Definitely at Mr. V's.
yeah,
So
but that commercial made Mr. V's go worldwide,
yes, it did.
and
That was
Cal grew
the
with that.
commercial that set everything in motion.
Hmm.
And then it had the audience, of course. So
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
audience was there. But
But
anyway,
just
Horace, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said just thinking about local musicians like the late Hamilton Bohannon, entertainers like Gorgeous George. You remember Gorgeous George?
Yes. No,
Gorgeous
you
George
don't.
called
Yeah,
in to our last reunion and talked to us over the
he was
microphone,
there. Oh,
over
I
the
gotta,
over
I gotta keep in touch with you because I want to cover that next phone reunion.
yeah.
I want to be there because I would love to see him. Oh my goodness.
And he's still living in Atlanta right now. He's living in Atlanta right now. Anthony Lockett, who was our guitar
Oh,
player,
Southwest,
yeah, he's in Northwest Atlanta.
Northwest.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I got your number, so
we could talk about that. But
yeah, I'll be in touch with you.
Anthony, Anthony Lockett left the Chapparrals and went to Cameo. You've heard the slow song "Sparkle in Your Eyes"?
Oh yeah.
That's a former Chapparral singing that song. Anthony Lockett.
Okay, I think I remember vaguely a little bit with the voice.
Hmm.
I think I remember that
It's kind of like a ballad. It's a
uh,
love song, and
when he
but
went to but you guys did so much um music to keep the audience going.
yeah.
It wasn't so much about any particular, it was more, and that's why I say band, because it was more the music, you know.
hmm Well,
Yeah.
yeah, when we were at New York City Radio City Music Hall with Marvin Gaye,
Uh-huh.
uh, you know, the Average White Band was on that show too, but we had New York shaking their head. It was amazing.
Well, you know, you are definitely someone that is interesting and very, very intelligent, because you've done so much with just a little, you know. One thing I would like to say about your camera, I know you're a member of the 100 Black Men here in Atlanta, and you serve as their photographer,
I was
right?
the official photographer, right, at one point.
Um, when we were growing up back in the day, there was so much to capture, and having a camera was really like something that we, I know, never ever thought that we would be able to really literally own. You know, we had the little snap thing, but that was not a camera. I'm talking about, like, you know, the civil rights were going on. So there were moments where there were needs for cameras. But for some reason, it was hard to come by in our Black families back then. It really was.
Because of affordability. They could afford a little brownie. You remember little brownie cameras?
Yeah, yeah, that's what
But
I'm saying.
but
I
you
had
couldn't afford
all
a
of
camera.
those, but I always wanted the camera, like cameras like what I have now. I
Yeah.
always wanted those back then
hmm
so that I could be like you.
Well, a lot of people couldn't afford it, and I don't either. If my brother had not sent me that camera, I couldn't afford it. So it was a gift to me. But in photography, kind of, I took courses at the New York Institute of Photography.
Right.
But you learn a lot by just kicking the tires and by making your own mistakes.
Yeah, but having a camera and being able to actually visualize what happened at a particular moment in time,
hmm
um, so many people became wealthy with those pictures that they were capturing
hmm
back in the day.
You're right.
So yeah,
Uh,
it was truly um, an experience to be able to have a camera.
well,
I'm
you
just
can
gonna say you were a very lucky young man.
you can make a good living in photography.
Oh yes,
I'm a
oh
witness.
yes, oh
Yeah.
yes. Believe you, I know. So. Um, Henry, Mr. Henry, thank you so much. We are so honored. I could go on and on and on and on to infinity talking to you about your life and your career and all of the things that you've accomplished in your life.
hmm
And I know when you think about all of the you know, challenges that we've had over the past few years with losing all of our loved ones and our friends that have been with us for so long. I know you have so much more to do. I can't wait to come to this reunion and to get to know you just a little bit better as it relates to your work.
hmm I think we're going to do that this year, this summer. I'll keep you posted.
Okay, well, thank you so much and have a great evening and many, many blessings. And keep doing what you're doing. You're phenomenal.
Jansen, thank you for having me on your show and love you. And you keep doing what you're doing as well.
All right, sir. Have a good night. We're going
You
to
too.
say bye bye for now.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, that was Mr. Horace Henry. He is an Atlanta's legend, and he stopped by to share his life and his career with us this evening. I am so honored to have had the pleasure to speak with him. We're going to say good night for now. Until then, continue to keep God first place in your life. I'm your host, the First Lady, MC Minister Jazzy. Until then, one love.